So we're asked to describe the relation of the second paragraph to the first. And I've identified these two paragraphs up here just generally as paragraph one is describing types of relationships. There's two types of relationships. Paragraph two is describing the four types of situations that can arise. Basically, they're flip-flopping between either there being few or many alternatives and an easy or difficult time in switching between existing suppliers. So what's the connection between these two paragraphs? Well, what's the transition between them, right? The connection between them is going to focus on the transition between them. And so if we look at the end of paragraph one, if you look at line 10 or line 11 rather, starting with line 11, we have the sentence that says there are two independent variables that companies should use to evaluate the feasibility of subjecting suppliers of indirect purchases to competitive scrutiny. This can create four possible situations. So we have the availability of alternatives and ease of changing suppliers are those two independent variables that companies should use to evaluate the feasibility of subjecting suppliers to indirect purchases to competitive scrutiny. Okay, so basically the second paragraph is listing out situations in which we would determine if we should subject suppliers to competitive scrutiny. Now, I think looking at the way that these answer choices are described, and I've kind of broken them down in a simplistic way of saying like, answer choice A offers proof of an assertion, right? So does the second paragraph offer proof of an assertion made in the first paragraph? Well, I don't think it proves anything. And I don't know what the assertion would have been. Maybe that in some situations, we should go with supplier partnerships, which can inappropriately shelter suppliers. I don't think it's proof, though. I think that this word and also this word, I would say, both kind of kill it for me. They're not exactly like in line with what I'd expect. I don't really see how there's any proof in the second paragraph and what it would be proving. B, the second paragraph provides an explanation for the occurrence of a situation described in the first paragraph. Does it explain why the occurrence occurs or anything like that? I think that the explanation part of it is definitely lacking. It's just providing various situations and explaining when it would be ideal to either be in a relationship with a competitive scrutiny relationship or a supplier partnership. I don't think that it's explaining anything. And also, I don't think that the occurrence of a situation makes sense either. I don't know what the situation would be. I guess the situation could be the occurrence of supplier partnerships, but I don't think it's explaining why they occur. I think it's explaining like different situations in which it's advantageous to choose one over the other. This would be probably a hold for me on my first read, to be honest. But as we go down the list, we'll see why this is not a great answer choice. So C says, the second paragraph discusses the application of a strategy proposed in the first paragraph. The application of a strategy. So first of all, I didn't really like this on my first read, but as I tear into it, what is the application of the strategy? Well, it's describing situations in which you would use a supplier partnership. And if we focus on those lines that we read in the first paragraph, starting with line 11, it says that companies should use these things to evaluate the feasibility of subjecting suppliers to competitive scrutiny. And that's the strategy, is subjecting suppliers to competitive scrutiny. And this discusses the situations in which we would do that. Now, discusses is a very soft word. It's very hard for that to be wrong. So I don't think discusses could rule this out. And I think application of a strategy could make sense. And so I would definitely hold this as well. I feel like this is stronger than B because I don't think that the second paragraph is purely an explanation. And that's why I think that C is probably superior at this point. Answer choice D examines the scope of the problem. So I don't think it's examining the scope of any problem. I don't know what the problem would be. Is the problem the fact that sometimes you have to be in competitive relationships and sometimes you have to be in supplier partnerships? That doesn't seem to make sense to me. Answer choice E discusses the contradictions inherent in the relationship described in the first paragraph. So what contradictions are existing in the first paragraph? I don't think that these contradictions make sense, and for that, I'm out. So answer choice C is our answer here. This is one of the harder questions, but you have to attack every question through a process of elimination-based strategy. Because if you do that and you're true to yourself about holding questions that or answer choices that you're not really sold on, you can always come back and reevaluate once you have more context because you've gotten through the rest of the answer choices. So I would prefer that you cross out things that you know are explicitly wrong and you hold on to anything you're questioning. And then as you move down the list, maybe you'll see, I like answer choice C better than answer choice B, so I'll cross B out and hold C. Or maybe you say, I'm not really sure between the two, I'm going to hold both. And if you have to work to a 50-50 guess on the hardest questions on the test, that's not always a bad thing, because we need to move efficiently. This question is going to be hard for most people. It's hard for me. So I think that focus on just moving efficiently through the test and making good decisions on what you cross out, and be honest with yourself about what you don't know.